We have with us today my dear friend, Dr. Tracy Allen from Moorpark College. And also she's bringing with her a colleague, Alejandro Castillo, an outreach specialist from Moorpark College as well. So welcome to both of them. Thank you guys for being here. And today they're going to be talking about just what the title says, a pathway to a UC from a CC, from a community college. So you guys are more than welcome to ask questions. If you like, you can put them in the chat and we can address them at the end if you like. That's probably easier. And go ahead, Tracy, take it away.
Thank you, Laura. So yeah, Alejandra's on here. So I'm going to kind of run the presentation and she can help monitor the chat. So if there's something specific, feel free to put it in. But I am going to try to leave time at the end as well to be able to answer some questions. So thank you for having us. And so, yeah, there's lots of different pathways to the UC. There's a lot of different information. I'm going to try to sync it in an hour as much as I can, but please reach out to us for more information as we go through it. So just in general, when you are wanting to go to a UC from a community college, these are just the basic admission requirements that you need to know. So you do have to have 60 units prior to transfer. So UCs do not take lower division students. So you couldn't go to Moorpark for a year and have 30 units and then transfer. You have to have 60 units. If you have AP units, that you've earned while in high school, those can actually count towards the 60. So some students do like a year or two if they have a lot coming in. But traditionally it's 2 years or more, to get to the 60 units. A minimum 2.4. That's just obviously going to be really vary by UC campus and in which major at which UC campus, but that's just a minimum. And that's a college GPA. So really important to understand your high school GPA will not be looked at as part of the UC admission. It's literally your college work, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. So, but it's really important to know because a lot of students who come to the community college and want to transfer to a UC, a lot want to do it in 2 years. You apply third semester. So, you apply in your third semester. So you really only have that fall, that spring, the next fall, that's the GPA they're using. So you do want to, start out with the mindset of that 4.0 and, from the beginning, because it's not like 4 years where you have time to maybe make up some grades or get that GPA up. It's pretty quick. It's 2 years sounds like a long time, but not really. No standardized tests. So if you took it, they're not going to look at it, or if you didn't take it, it's not part of the admission process going to a UC from the community college. Now, of the 60 units, the question is, what should those 60 units be? You want to be smart about which classes you take. You don't want just any 60 units with a 4.0. You're not going to get in. You have to have the right 60 units. And there's a minimum. So you'll see on the screen, everyone's going to have at least 1 math, at least 2 English courses, at least 4 from our general education areas. And then the additional general education and major prep, what we call the lower division courses. These are the most important things that a lot of students kind of have the mindset, I'm going to go to a community college and then go to a UC. They think they're going to come to us, do their GE and transfer. We kind of hear that statement all the time. I want to do my GE and then transfer. That's not wrong. You do need to do your general education, but you can't ignore the major preparation. That's what makes you most selective to get into a UC school. You have to think of your first 2 years at the community college as your first 2 years if you were at UCLA. So if you went to UCLA as a psychology major, in your first 2 years, you would take, yes, general education, but you would also start your major. So when they want to admit you, they want to see what classes you've taken that are equivalent to those first 2 years, because we have those equivalent of those lower division courses you would take there because they're lower division, which we can offer first and second year lower division courses. And they want to see your GPA in those courses. You could have a 4.0 and only taken history courses, but you're applying as a biology major, it's going to be hard for them to know how are they going to do in the upper division courses in the major. So just as this, generic slide, but just the higher the GPA, the better. And your 60 units ideally is try to get as much of that general education done. We have a pattern, it's called IGETC. And then as much of that major prep. And I'll give some resources about how to find out how to know what those classes are and different things like that. The other thing to know is you can usually only apply for a fall term for the UCs. So that's a little bit different than the CSUs or private colleges. So when you are planning out how long you want to be at a community college in those 60 units, traditionally that would be 30 units a year. So like 15 in the fall, 15 in the spring, and obviously into the second year. So your 60 units have to be done within the 4 semesters prior to that next fall admission cycle. So if you finished your 60 mid-year, you couldn't really apply for a spring term. You have to kind of plan out your coursework to apply for a fall term. So depending on your major, that can be easily done in 4 semesters. But you also have to think if you're going to be having to work while going to college, taking a full load, you might need to do it in 3 years. And that doesn't look bad in the admission process. We get that question a lot from students. Will the UCs care if it takes me 3 years? They don't care if it took you 2 years or 6 years. They care about your 60 units are the right ones and what your GPA is, because a lot of students have to work, and that's there's a lot of things that go along with being a full-time student. And so again, the 2-year thing is a student perspective or student expectation. It's not from the Cal State to the UC. So again, plenty of our students transferred in 2 years, but I always like to kind of demyth that a little bit of does it look bad to do it in 3 years, especially if you're a STEM high science unit major. It is difficult to do it in 3 years. Oops, sorry, let me go back a slide. It's not letting me go back. Here we go. Okay, so I wanted to give some perspective, a little bit of admission data. So in the blue, you will see these are the fall 2020 admission statistics for the UCs, and I'll show each campus compared to the admission statistics for transfers. So this isn't necessarily Moorpark's numbers. I'm using community college numbers. So for fall 20, the admission rate is a freshman, meaning out of high school directly, 14%. Or 14.4 got into UCLA out of 108,000 applications. Transfers from the California Community College is a 24% acceptance rate. So you can see your chances are much higher. You're obviously not using the same criteria, so because you're not using your high school portfolio, you're now using, again, what you do at the college level. But just to give you an idea, it is much easier to use percentages, and I'm using that term, to get into a UC coming from a community college, and just pure statistic numbers of there's not as many applicants that you're competing with to get in. And they're not looking at, and it hurts my heart a little bit to talk to seniors when I say they're not looking as much at all that other stuff you've done in high school, like they are in a freshman application with the extracurriculars and all those type of things. Good or bad, depending how you view that. When you come from a community college to a UC, it is your GPA and your coursework is by far the vast majority of the weight of making admission decisions. There is an essay involved, and so they do look at those type of things, and you can on the application put your extracurricular, and they do look at that. So I don't want to say it's not important to do. Getting involved at the community college is a whole nother presentation of why that's beneficial to do that. But it's just not weighted the same. And because again, you're coming in as a junior, they need to make sure you're going to be excel at those biology or whatever those major classes are your junior and your senior year. I'm going to talk about our honors program in a little bit, which is a totally different rate. So, but you can see for those 3 schools, if you went to San Diego, Irvine, and Davis. Okay, so just again, you can kind of look at the screen. So 38 to 56, Irvine 29 to 40, Davis is 46 to 56. And then Riverside is actually about the same. Merced, this question comes up a lot in terms of the acceptance rate. It has to do with, there's not as many students apply. I mean, you're only talking 3,000 versus 25,000. And it has a lot to do with some of the majors they have and different things like that. Our number is very different at Moorpark, and so that percentage can look a little different coming from Moorpark, and then Santa Cruz. So again, that's just a way to kind of see the difference in the rates. So in terms of what makes you competitive and selective and how you can get to the UC if you're going to start at a community college, there's kind of 4 different pathways that I'm going to kind of briefly go into. And it's important to know in terms of transferring to a UC, 90% of their transfers come from the California Community College system. You are a priority as part of their admission process. So it's meaning it's difficult to like enroll at UC Santa Barbara and then transfer to UCLA. That is not highly looked upon, and it's very difficult to go to UC or from a Cal State to a UC. They highly favor the community college to UC transfer. So that's why 90% of them of the term transfer, meaning you're coming from another college, are from California community colleges, because we have such strong partnerships with them. It makes it much easier. So first I'm going to talk about TAG. This is a lot of acronyms. So TAG stands for Transfer Admission Guarantee. This is probably one of the most popular pathways. Our students come to Moorpark who know they want to go to a UC will ask about a TAG. TAG, it is what it is. It's an admission guarantee to all of the UCs participate except for UCLA, Berkeley, and San Diego. And I'll talk about different pathway options for them. But the other UC schools, if you know that is a top choice of yours, it is only eligible for California community college students. You are guaranteed admission to your campus, but you can only choose one school to tag to. So if you can apply to 5 different UCs, but the guarantee you'd have to choose, I'm going to do my tag to Irvine. So you do choose one campus to tag to. The benefit of the tag is you get an early review and early, obviously, notification that you've been admitted to that school as you wait to hear from your other campuses you might apply to. And the eligibility requirements are campus specific. So I know you can't read that bottom screen, and we can put in the chat at the end. There's a document. It's called the TAG Matrix that tells you by campus what you have to do to be guaranteed admission. And basically it comes down to a certain GPA and a certain set of courses that have to be done. So some majors are excluded. So for example, at UC Santa Barbara, you can tag to Santa Barbara, but not the engineering major. So they will note that on that matrix. It'll tell you most majors are pretty open, but some campuses do eliminate. So if you can't tag to your major, I would tag to another college that you could, do engineering in a different school or something like that. Just so you can still apply, you just can't do the tag for that major. And then they'll give you a GPA. So if you have a 3.4 and you take the classes that says you have to have the math and the English and so on, you will be guaranteed admission. I mean, it's that simple. They make it very clear of what the GPA is and what the courses are. So this is a really easy way if you have a top choice UC school that you want to go to. In your first semester, you want to find out about, and again, it's out there, the tag requirements, so you know right away, because you will submit your tag after your first year. So it's important you know about it ahead of time and don't find out about it a year later. Oh, I should have taken my math or English in my first year, that type of thing. So that's what the tag is. And then the next one is TAP, and this is part of our honors program. So again, I'm representing Moorpark College. A lot of community colleges do have an honors program that is a partnership with UCLA, but if you are not going to Moorpark, you would want to check that if this was a pathway you wanted to do, because it is a partnership that UCLA and Moorpark have a contract and an agreement with this. Not every community college has that, but some do. But Moorpark's we have this, we've had this for years, and this is one of our top programs that students come to us for, especially for UCLA. So what TAP is you have to be part of our honors program. So to get in our honors program, you either had to have a 3.25 high school GPA, and there's just an online application and you automatically are in our honors program. Just send us a high school transcript and we verify that 3.25 and you're in the honors program. If you were below that, that's okay, because you just need to have a 3.0 at Moorpark. So if you hit a 3.0 in your first semester, then you can join the honors program after your first semester. And you basically have to take 15 units of honors courses. And some of our classes are 3 units, 5 units. So it could be, 4 or 5 classes of honors classes. You have to do an extracurricular event on campus, like a presentation or different things like that. But basically that's the program. And then you can apply through the TAP Transfer Alliance program when you apply to UCLA. And you basically, it's not a guarantee like the tag, but you get a second look. So you are allowed to declare a second major. Now, this is for the majors in the College of Letters and Science. So there are 111 majors, so there's a lot to choose from in the Letters and Science at UCLA. But so like you said, you can be reviewed for UCLA. If you get in on your first major, great. But then you are allowed to pick a secondary major, and then they can review you for that major. So maybe you don't get in on the first major, but you're willing to do one of these similar majors. And you can get in with that. Our admission rate, so I think I showed you, it was like 30%, in general for UCLA. It's 86% of our students who go through our TAP get into UCLA. So if UCLA is a goal, it's a no-brainer, to do our honors program through our TAP. And I don't have the breakdown, but I'm pretty sure it's a pretty high number of that. It's in their first major. So it's not like they're only getting in with their second major. So again, finding out through the community college about the honors program, that's an agreement with UCLA, and the honors will help you for all the other schools. I mean, so I don't want to say it's not just a benefit for UCLA. Obviously that would look good for applying to other UCs, but this is just that pathway that we do have a guarantee or a partnership with UCLA for them for you to declare a second major and have a second review in the application process. Because that's a common question we also get is you can't apply under multiple majors and then switch your major when you get to the UC. So that's a popular question. Well, I'm going to apply under one of the most non-competitive majors. I'm going to apply as, say, women's studies at UCLA and get admitted, and then I'm going to switch it to business economics. You can't what they call backdoor your way in. You are only going to be reviewed for one major that you put on your application for every UC. Other than the TAP, you can put a second one. So the third pathway is called UC Pathways, in terms of how you should plan to get into a UC from a community college. So these are what we kind of call roadmaps for the most sought after majors at the UC. So TAG and TAP, the first two I mentioned, are really good if you have a specific campus in mind. Like you want to go to UC Irvine, so you're going to do a TAG for UC Irvine. You want to go to UCLA, so you're going to do TAP for UCLA. Pathways is good if you know your major, but you don't know necessarily which UC campus, which is kind of the other way, right? If you look at it, like you might know you really want to do a psychology major, but you're open to which UC campus. You're not tied to one. And again, you can still apply to other schools with the first two. I don't want to confuse that, but what this does is the UC Pathways. It was a partnership where the UCs basically got together and came up with a common core. So basically, if you take these lists of classes at Moorpark, for example, this is an econ. If you want to be an econ major, if you take econ 1, econ 2, and 2 semesters of calculus at Moorpark, you are going to be competitive to apply to all of the UCs, because this is kind of the agreed set of courses to be competitive all the UC campuses want you to have. And so it makes it really simple. You can just Google UC Pathways. You can pick which community college, and it'll tell you based on which major, these are the courses you want to do. And again, ideally you do these in your first 3 semesters because you're applying in that 3rd semester. You can take them in your last semester, absolutely. But you want to take as much of your major prep as soon as you can. So they can again review you, and look at what grades you got in those courses. They will look at your 4th semester. If you do 2 years, 4 traditional semesters, they will look at your grades, but they are going to make the admission decision like around April in your 4th semester. So they are, like I said, looking at course selection and GPA through that 3rd term. And then they'll make an admission decision, in your 4th term based on what you've done. And then as long as you maintain, or don't fail classes or drop classes or don't drop below the 60, all those minimum requirements, you would maintain your admission. But I just can't emphasize enough more the importance of getting off to a good start for a UC. Or again, if you take it 3 years, just think of everything prior to that last semester, if it's 5 semesters instead of 6. I just took a couple really good kind of FAQs off the Pathways website. Just to kind of explain it. So there, the question, is this a good strategy for community college students? And the answer is yes. By preparing for multiple campuses, again, You complete those courses, and it does two things. One, it makes you more competitive, but it also ensures you're going in as a junior. So it's also important students want to finish within 2 years when they get there. So that's kind of what, they're trying to explain here is by, it's a key admission strategy in terms of being competitive. You increase your chance for admission. And then those who've completed those courses, like, and you're on time, like you're guaranteed to go in as a junior. And if we use that econ example, that was 4 classes, right? 2 econs and 2 calculuses. So you could apply with just 1 econ class and 60 units and all that minimum, but your chances of getting in are going to be a lot less because they haven't seen those other 3 classes. And if you were to get in just because, you had a good GPA, you would still have to do those additional 3 classes when you got to that school. So, and that's going to add on time there. So that's why you want to get as much of the lower division freshman and sophomore level classes done in your first 2 years. Second question, if there's no guarantee, why should I complete a pathway? And I think I've expressed most of it, but again, it makes you competitive. If you're admitted to 1 or more campuses, it positions yourself to be ready to transfer. And even though you don't get that guarantee, it's the most unofficial guarantee that you can do. These were developed by the UC campus. So you're doing what the UC set out that they want you to do, versus someone else giving you advice of what to do. This is what the UC has said we want our community college students to have prior to coming. So kind of the fourth kind of pillar, or element to all of this is what they call the UC Pathways Plus. And it's basically doing the pathway. So you're going to that website, you're looking up for your major. These are the courses I need to take, but you're also doing the tag. So again, it's just a way of ensuring you're guaranteed admission to one of the campuses, but also making sure you're keeping yourself competitive for all the other schools. Because you might get tagged and guaranteed admission into Davis, but you might want to apply to 4 other UC campuses. And you don't want to follow only Davis's requirements, just in case you change your mind. You want to keep your options open, just because sometimes things change in 2 years. You might, as a freshman coming into Moorpark, say, I know I want to be psychology at Irvine, and that's great. And that might be your pathway. You follow it, you get in, and that's what you do. But sometimes students get exposed to other classes and they find another area or another campus they've, learn about, and that you don't want to narrow yourself only for one campus, because then if all of a sudden you want to apply to 3 more, you were ignoring their requirements. So by following that pathway set of courses, again, you're making yourself open for all the different UCs, but you're still kind of tagging with the school to make sure you have that one guarantee of one campus you want to go to. And then you still could do the TAP with it too. So there's like a Pathways plus, right? If you also do the honors, for UCLA. So those are kind of, the 4 real basic. If you're a student who's going to go to the community college and you want to go to a UC, in your first semester, you want to, meet with counseling and get set up to look at what the tag options are for the campuses and the major, look at that pathway list of courses, and then make sure, you're making an education plan that has all those included over whether it's going to take you 2 or 3 years to put those in semester by semester and make sure you've got all the courses that you need. So a couple resources that are important for you to know. I made the comment of we have the equivalent courses of your first 2 years out of UC. And how do you know which courses those are? So there's a website called assist.org where you can go and search campus by campus for which community college and which Cal State also and UC. And which courses are equivalent. So for example, if you want to go to Moorpark and you want to go to UCLA as a psychology major, you put Moorpark, UCLA psychology, and it'll say these are all the courses that are lower division equivalent to what you would do in your first 2 years at UCLA. You don't have to have every single one of them done. So it's not like a black or white requirement on that list. Like you have to have them all to get in, but the more you have, the better chance you have of being admitted. It just makes you more competitive. Schools like UCLA, which obviously in Berkeley are the harder, more selective ones to get in. I would try to have as many of them as you can, but that's a good place to go even before you start at Moorpark at a community college to get an idea of it's not the same at every campus. A lot of students are surprised, oh, well, the psych requirements will be the same for UCLA and Santa Barbara and Irvine. I mean, there is some commonality, everyone's going to ask for intro to psych and stats and things like that, but they do have different missions of what their programs are and kind of what their curriculum is. So you'll find like at Santa Barbara as an example, their psychology program is much more neuroscience based. So you're going to take a lot more science, at Santa Barbara than you are for Irvine. So you want to do your research and not just, pick a campus and without knowing and understanding the philosophy behind those programs and those majors at those campuses. And Assist will help you in terms of it gives you a little description and what coursework looks like. The next one is a transfer admission planner. And if you've applied to a UC out of Chaminade, you're familiar with kind of the application profile in their website. It's very similar, but for a transfer student, you can start your application, what they call a planner in your first semester. So you don't apply again until, the semester prior, the fall prior to the year you want to transfer. But if you start your planner for your first semester, you can input your classes every semester, and it helps you stay along to make sure you're on track. And the nice thing is, the UCs use that to communicate with students. So, we recommend your first semester at the community college, start your planner for, say, you're coming to Moorpark in fall 21 and you're looking for fall 23 transfer to a UC. You could put that in which campuses you're interested in, which majors, because then the UCs actually communicate information to you, if they're doing information sessions or things like that. So the sooner the UC knows who you are and what you're interested in, you'll just get more information and more access to resources. So you don't technically have to do your planner until you're ready to apply, but we recommend starting it early and getting in there. The third link is the link to the guide in terms of that pathways that I mentioned. So that's the website you would go to find out what those common set of classes are to follow the pathways that I mentioned. So you can go in and see what are the common classes for those different majors that you'd want to try to put into your ed plan at the community college. And the last thing is the tag matrix, which again, we'll make sure we put in the chat for you, or you can just Google UC tag matrix. And because it's a really hard document to show on a screen, but basically it has all the UC campuses. It'll tell you if any majors are excluded from the tag, what GPA you need to have. It makes it very clear to know, they do make changes to that. So obviously you guys as seniors wouldn't be applying for 2 more years. There's not usually, so you'd have to follow, what the tag requirements are for 2 years from now, but there's not usually major change. Some GPAs go up a little. But I've been at Moorpark 14 years, and the only thing that's really changed is the San Diego opted out, which they used to be in it. So some campuses might, but the GPA and such doesn't tend to change very much. And again, I'm gonna make sure I answer questions at the end and look at the chat of kind of all that information. I know it's a lot to go over, but a couple things to plug a little bit at Moorpark, which you'll kind of learn. The timing of, and Alejandro's on here with outreach, can kind of talk to students with seniors. Right now is a really tough time as you're trying to finish your senior year. You're finding about which schools you're getting admitted to. And there's a lot of decision making and choices and things going on, let alone COVID and Zoom. We won't even add that into the mix. So what's interesting is the community colleges tend to do their registration for fall very early. So for example, for us, May 3rd, which is like couple of weeks away, is fall registration, which a lot of students are like, I don't even know yet where I'm going or what I'm doing. We encourage students, if you're still looking at your options and you're not sure, go through our process. And I'm saying this about all community colleges, but remember, go through our process, do our application, learn about our programs, and register. It seems weird, but if you're not sure, register for classes on May 3rd to ensure you get in those classes that you want. And then once you know what's going on in June or July, if you have to drop the classes, there's no commitment. You get your money back. The UC schools aren't going to care, if that's where you end up going. Because what tends to happen a lot with the community students who come late to the community college and want to go to a UC, they kind of make it a last minute decision, like in August, like, okay, I guess I'm going to do this pathway. And registration's been open for months, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can't get in those classes and now I'm behind and I want to go to a UC. And it's kind of this, it can be more stressful than it needs to be. So if, again, I'd look at whatever community college is closest to you, obviously plugging Moorpark. We have what we call open house events where we organize all our programs by area of interest. So like tonight we have education and teaching, which is like all our child development and elementary education and so on. So look at your community colleges, look at us and start to find out the steps in the process. Because the sooner, like I said, you find out about what classes you need to take, because you only have 3 semesters to apply if you're trying to do it in 2 years. So you want to get those right classes your first semester. So we have these, April is kind of our open house month. We have these going on all throughout the month. And then I mentioned our honors program. So again, I kind of quickly went over it, but if you want to just hear more about it, how it works, we are doing an open house session. So you can, that is on April 29th, and we can put a flyer in the link for that. So you can kind of learn more about that pathway and that option to UCLA as part of that TAP. And then one thing to know really about community colleges in general, and again, using Moorpark College, and I'm actually going to go to this slide. I'll go back. When you're thinking about the UCs and the pathway to get into a UC, it's important to think of the cost. Like I said several times, your first 2 years are the exact same in terms of coursework as they are if you went there out of high school. The community colleges have a promise program. So I'll go back to that. It is free. Is a first-time student coming right out of high school. You are first time going to college. All you have to do is fill out the FAFSA. It doesn't matter if you make $1 million. You will qualify. You just have to fill out the FAFSA because that's the application that you have to do it. Once you fill that out, all your fees are waived. So if you think of a UC, that's about $14,000 a year tuition. I'm not even talking all the other stuff. That's a lot of money. You might want to think about the investment and the advantages of the benefit of the coursework, in what you're doing in your first 2 years that you can do at a community college, and do it with smaller class sizes and actually the faculty and that you're not going to get necessarily in 100 size class as a first semester student at a UC. You're going to have, 28 students in your English 1A class at Moorpark because we cap it at 28 students. So, those are things to think about in terms of that experience of why is the benefit of going from a community college to a UC. There is no reason you can't do that same exact equivalent in those first 2 years and go in as a junior. And then, that's where you're really going to excel in your major, if that makes sense. Because when you get to the UC, or at least in the CSU, there's a couple more GE classes, but not really. You're really doing all your upper division coursework in your major, and that's where you're going to get that expertise of what that institution, that UC is known for, and those faculty, not as much in all the GE classes, which we're going to have a variety of the options to do that. Really quick to go back to talk about that promise, the California Community College. So this is, and Alejandro can understand this, there's kind of a myth out there. We're trying to get everyone to understand it really is tuition free. There's not a catch to it. So you apply to Moorpark. The only catch is you have to be a first-time student. So you can't go to a UC out of high school and then come back, you have to be a first-time student to do it. So this is your chance. It's kind of graduating out of high school. If you go straight to the community college first, you submit a FAFSA or DREAM Act application, make sure you put our code on there, and then you have to be full-time. That's the only other. So ideally, again, UCs want to see full-time enrollment. So I'm not sure if I emphasized that enough. And full-time is 12 units or more. Again, if you want to get 60 units done in 2 years, that's about 15 units if you don't do summer school. So find out about the Promise program, again, using Moorpark's information, to make sure students understand that. Again, this is going to be a similar process in terms of coming from a community college. So like, for example, for Moorpark, we make it pretty seamless and supportive for students to go through the steps. We have, for example, Zoom workshops to help students do our application every week. If you need help doing that FAFSA, we have Zoom sessions weekly to help with that. There are 3 steps students have to take to get priority registration, which again for us is May 3rd. They're pretty simple. It's an online orientation, an English self-placement, and then doing what's called a first semester education plan. And we have some how-to guides on our website to help with that. And then we do kind of Zoom group counseling sessions to help you kind of get started in terms of those are kind of the steps for us. I want to make sure I leave time to look at the chat and answer questions that people have. I know, again, it's a lot of information in a short amount of time, and I kind of went quickly through. And I want to be able to answer questions. I'm going to stop share if that's okay, so I can see people. And I see a lot of activity in the chat. Alejandra, is there anything right away I can address?
It was me. I was putting in links for everything and flyers and handouts. Yeah. So I'm not sure if people have questions.
Yeah, so if you want to unmute yourself or put questions in the chat, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions from any parents or students that are here right now? This
Or
is
any
a great
slides
time
you want me to go back to? I can do that. I try to go quickly enough to leave time for questions.
Is there a link to the PowerPoint is in the chat?
Alejandra, do you think, because I can't put, for some reason.
I can send it. Yeah, give me just a second and I'll upload it. Yeah.
In.
We're also recording this session, and sorry, we're also recording this session, and we're going to be posting this on our website as well. So the students and families will have access to this at a later time too.
And one thing I said I was going to go back to, and I don't think I did. I want to talk about that IGETC. I threw out that acronym a little bit at the beginning so students know what that is. So IGETC stands for Intersegmental General Education Transfer Curriculum. That's why there's an acronym, but so what that is, so if you don't know what UC you want to, and every community college has this IGETC pathway basically. So if you don't know what UC you want to go to, the first thing in your first semester is you want to get a copy of each of the community college's IGETC worksheet, because that will tell you all the general education categories that you want to fill to complete the IGETC prior to transfer, and which courses at that campus meet it. So for example, the categories are English and math. Like I mentioned at the beginning, you have to have one math class at a minimum. Your major might require more if you're doing like a STEM major. 2 English classes. You'll need 3 from what we call the arts and humanities. You'll need 3 from what we call like a social science, and then you'll need 2 sciences, a life science and a physical science. So again, you don't have to have every one of those before you go, but they like to see those complete, so you don't have to do any GE when you get there. So that's kind of best advice that we tell seniors. If you're going to go to a UC via community college, start with that IGETC right away, because you know all those classes will be accepted by the UC and they'll transfer for the GE. And Alejandra is on it. They're putting everything in, so this is great. So you can kind of see what that is. And then some of those double count. So for example, if you're a psych major and psych is part of that UC pathway, you need to take psych. That's also a social science on your GE. So it's not as sometimes students get, I have to take all these GEs and all these majors. There's a lot of overlap, and that's what counseling can help you do, is we'll help you do an education plan to kind of double count, as much as we can. And to be the most effective, to get into that UC, the more research you can do on the front end of the different UC campuses you're interested in, what majors are offered. That's another thing that happens a lot at the community college is students come in, they say, I want to be a business administration major at UCLA. Well, they don't have a business administration major. They have a business economics, which is similar, but the coursework's different. So you want to try, you don't have to necessarily know on day one, what UC campus or what major, but it's helpful to do some research prior to that first semester. So then you can, say, hey, these are the majors I'm looking at. These are the campuses I'm looking at. So how best can I make myself most competitive and most selective to all the different schools? And you put all those classes, on your ed plan. And again, a traditional cycle is in the fall, you take 4 or 5 classes. The next spring, you take 4 or 5 classes. The next fall, you take 4 or 5 classes. And again, you have summer school in there if you want to add more. And then in that fall, you apply. So in like fall 22, if I get my numbers right. So if you're coming into Moorpark in fall of 21, you take classes fall and spring. And then fall of 22, you actually apply for fall of 23. And on your application, you put in under all your classes, the fall, spring, the next fall, and then what classes you plan to take in the spring. And then in that spring, you update your grades from fall. So that's why I said they will look at those grades in your 3rd semester. And if you made any changes in things like that. So I see a question, are you assigned a counselor to help you select your courses? How and when do you do this? So really good question. So I can speak for Moorpark, again, different community colleges do it differently, but we assign counselors by our areas of interest. So kind of by our program. So we do have that are in our science and math, that are assigned to those. In terms of the first semester, so there was a link that it's in the PowerPoint and that's in there. So what we do when you apply to Moorpark, you get an email after applying to Moorpark that will say based on what major. So say you apply to Moorpark as a psychology major. You will get an email that says, welcome to Moorpark. Please see this attached first semester schedule of what classes you should take as a psychology major. So you'll actually we have those developed, kind of what we call program maps for all of the majors. So for your first semester, you'll get that information emailed to you. We're just now starting to roll those out for our first time students who've already applied. So if you haven't applied yet, you'd get that, after you apply. And then we do have those workshops, like I said, where if you have questions about those first semester classes, you can get information or help with those. And then if you still need help, then you can make a one-on-one appointment with the counselor. We tend to do that not prior to, we do that in your first semester. Then we can do that whole comprehensive education plan where we can do the rest of your semesters, in some, so yes, we're assigned to counselors. We ideally, it makes more sense to go to the group sessions because a lot of new students need to hear the same information. And then you'll find out who the counselors are that are assigned to those majors, and then you can make follow-up. And we're all online right now in terms of counseling. We do have drop-in that's virtual. So you can either make an appointment with the counselor. We do 1-hour appointments via Zoom right now. And then we do have virtual drop-in. So you can always go through our drop-in, which is a lot more hours, and do it that way. I think for the fall, we're still going to be virtual. We're still figuring things in terms of services. So counseling will still pretty much be virtual in the fall semester. And in terms of classes, just to throw that out there. So we're looking at about 30 to 50, it depends on the campus, percent online versus in person. So when you look at the schedule of classes, it's important to look at the location. So when you're signing up for classes, we're not going to be 100% in person yet, but we're not going to be fully 100% online. We are going to be a mix depending on the classes of online and in person. Can you apply to the Moorpark College or just Moorpark before May 3rd, I think is the question. So yeah, you can apply at any time up through like the first day of classes. We don't recommend that, but May 3rd is just that priority day. So the majority of our first time students actually don't even register on May 3rd because we get so many students who apply all throughout the summer. That's just the first day it's open for new students to register, and that's for summer and fall. So if you apply now, you'd have everything ready to go. You do those 3 steps, you'd be ready to register on May 3rd. If you don't apply by May 3rd, you basically are ready to register once you've done those 3 steps. If that's just kind of an ongoing, if that makes sense. So, so if you end up applying to us end of May, as soon as you do those 3 steps, basically it turns into what's called like open registration at a certain point where you just register the day after you get your confirmation of your 900 number. It's not, everyone who applies gets admitted. It's not like where it takes weeks. It just usually takes, I don't know, Alejandro, usually like what, 2 days at the most for the application to kind of be received and get your ID number?
Yeah, so you want to give yourself some time to do the application because it can take anywhere from 24 to 72 hours for you to receive that welcome email. And then you still need to set up your portal to do the orientation and the English placement and then your ed plan. So you don't want to do it the night before because it'll take you a few more days than that.
Right. But it's not like that's the only day to register on May 3rd. That's just to get that priority. Like she said, you need to do that a couple days prior. So you're ready to go that week. And we have Zoom sessions like May 5th, 6th, 7th for, those of you at Chaminade, all the different high schools, you can come in and get that counseling help. We have a whole triage, we're going to be able to help students online, and then, like I said, all throughout the summer, counseling is open to make any changes and things like that. Any other UC related questions? I'm trying to think. I mean, the UC, we go, as counselors, we go to all the UC sessions, and it's major prep, major prep, major prep. And it sounds bizarre to say that, but that's the kind of the best advice to walk away from. In terms of my experience working as a counselor, is when students are denied from the UC, why they're denied usually has to do with they don't have enough of the major prep classes. Like they come in, they just do GE and 60 units and they think they're ready to transfer to a UC. So that's kind of the big walkaways. It's okay to be undeclared. A lot of our students are undecided, so I don't, want that message to be mixed. And some majors are small. It's very easy to get all the major prep done in 2 semesters or so. The bigger majors where it's more difficult if you don't know your major your first semester and you kind of decide that your second semester, or some of the more of the STEM. And that's where we say, be here for 3 years, and get the classes in, save that money. If you think of that $14,000 a year, just because you get in, but if you still have a whole year left of lower division courses, you're going to have to do those lower division courses when you get there. So it just makes the pathway to the UC is the most efficient way to do it, is to take as much of that GE, much of that major prep, because that both saves you time and money when you get there. So you're able to graduate in 2 years when you're at the UC. And, it makes you most selective and competitive to get into all the UC campuses that you apply to. Some students only apply to 1 or 2, some students apply to every UC. We kind of see everything at the community college, of what students are, in terms of the application. And we have a lot of pathways for the CSUs. So a lot of our students apply to the Cal States and the UCs as well together. It's not like you have to just be on a UC path. The nice thing is this pathways is new with the UC, where they've come up with these core classes. That's actually following a pathway the CSUs have already created, where they've created kind of these what we call associate degrees for transfer, where they're guaranteeing admission. And it really is overlapping nicely. So if students are looking at a Cal State and a UC, it's very easy to follow that pathways, and you're going to be really on track, for the most part with certain classes. But it's important to, go to assist.org, and that, again, do as much research as you can prior, so you can look at what does a psych major look like at a UC versus a Cal State, or within the UC campuses themselves, and how do they look different? And, a lot of you have probably done your research, applying out of high school. So it's very similar if you've already looked at your majors. It's just now finding out what classes you need for those majors is really important. And access, we hear that all the time. Is it hard to get classes? If you register early, it's not, so the later you wait, it can be a little more difficult. Obviously, being virtual, things are kind of different than we've ever had it, had it be before. So, we're hoping, through the fall, through the spring, most community colleges are offering more and more on ground, but we do have a lot of different variations where you can take online, you can be in person, you can do what was synchronous or asynchronous, meaning you take an online class, but you never have to be on at an exact time, or it's a class where it's online, but you're on live with your faculty every day, or every Tuesday at 2:00. So the nice thing about the community college is there's so many different options, which sometimes can be overwhelming, but it's, in terms of giving you opportunity of how you want to take your certain courses. And the other, again, takeaway is it's a fresh start, good or bad, depending how you look at that, where the UCs are only looking at your college level work. So if you took any college courses like dual enrollment while you were in high school, they are going to use those. So again, if you guys are seniors, it's already been done. But if you have younger brothers or sisters, we always kind of give that word of caution. It's great you get credit for those classes. They are on your college transcript. So if you take them via, Psych 1 is a psych major, you take it as a junior, that counts, absolutely is part of the major prep. But that GPA also counts. So sometimes students take college classes while in high school, and then they come like, oh, well, now it's my fresh start. I don't want to count that C, that I took. Everything counts if it's a college level class. So just keep that in mind. And one other thing to throw out about AP, if any of you have AP credit, that's a little more complicated, in terms of they absolutely give you the UC credit. So if you took the AP exam and got a 3, 4, or 5 on your AP exam, you will get credits towards like the 60 units that I talked about. And if it was a general education class, in our catalog, we have an index that'll show you if you got a 3 in your AP score, what it's equivalent to, like on the IGETC. So it's very easy to know, a 3 in psychology AP counts as an IGETC course. So you might already have some classes done, which the UCs will accept, which is great. But if there's courses for your major, sometimes you have to have a 5, and that's campus specific. So that you do want to be mindful. The UCs prefer that you take courses in your major is college level classes versus AP. Again, general education is fine. That's a different story. So if you're a psychology major and you took AP history and you're counting that as your GE, that's easy. But if you're a psychology major applying to a UC, you'll want to check which UC campuses you're applying to, because you might have to take the psych at the college, even though you got college credit, because if it's your major, they don't tend to like it in an AP format. They tend to like it in a college level class. But that's a generic, it really depends on the campus. So you'd have to look at, the UC campus and the major to see how they view AP scores. But they absolutely always count for the 60 units in general ed. It's just, we always tell students, you don't want to double count then. So if you took AP Psych, then you take Psych ML1 in the community college, you're not going to get the 6 unit, decide how you want to do that. Some of our courses at the community colleges do have prerequisites with high school work. So for example, if you wanted to take our general biology class, we have to know you took high school chemistry. So if you go online to register for general bio and it says you have to have high school chem, well, we don't know you took high school chem unless you send us a transcript to know you've been cleared for that. Not a lot of our classes have prerequisites, but some of them do. You don't need a counseling appointment for that. You can just go online to the link and always request a prerequisite clearance. So that's something also important to know, especially if you're in the STEM majors going to a UC and you want to start right away in the high level, bios, science and math courses, you might need to get a prerequisite clearance. We can use unofficial copies of your high school transcripts. So the community colleges we do not require official transcripts. We can use unofficials for advising and for clearing prerequisites and things like that. You just upload it into the email. So just clarification on that. That's kind of a hiccup sometimes in the process of signing up for classes for students to know about. Other questions? Anything about the UCs, the application process? And I'm going to put I don't know if you already did it, Alejandra, but I'll put my email in there as I'm typing. If anyone wants to follow up. So question about our film program. So we have a really strong, all of our performing arts. So arts, media, entertainment is kind of our area of interest that's related to film. Strong program. Our students do transfer to both. There are, local CSUs and private schools. April 29th, I'll plug, is the open house. We actually just had a meeting today, a planning meeting about, and it's gonna be nice. They're gonna do breakout sessions at that session. So Nicole Block is kind of our faculty who oversees our film program. Their application process for the UCs is a little different. So I didn't talk about specific majors, but areas in kind of the fine arts and kind of what we call media arts. Sometimes they do have portfolio requirements. So while I just said GPA and courses is all you need to worry about, some majors like music and film and those type of majors, you will have to do portfolios. And the nice thing about our classes is through our actual classes, like through our film program, or if I change that out for music, you're actually going to be creating and building your portfolio. So there's nothing worse than just taking GE classes at the community college and then you apply to transfer to a UC as a film major. Then you have to have all this college level portfolio that you didn't do anything. You don't have anything. You might have work you did in high school, but they're looking, if you're applying as a transfer to a UC into like a program like film, they are looking for portfolio content. And you're going to get that hands-on in small class sizes. You're going to have a lot of when we meet with students, the problem is finding out which, final products they want to use for their portfolio, to showcase. But you're going to have access to the faculty who are going to help you with the applications. They're going to help you with their portfolios. So we have a very high success rate of our students in film, moving on. A lot of them get hired right after the community college, as well. So, remember, that's the benefit of community college. You don't have to transfer. This obviously presentation is about going on to a UC, and a lot of our students do. But a lot of our industry kind of related get hired right away, and they work while they transfer, different things like that. So if you're interested in film, I highly recommend. I'm not one of the counselors that kind of oversees that area of interest, but from my experience, again, just working with those students, and the faculty can give you a lot more detail, and we can always give you some of their contact information, but you're going to have a chance to have a panel on the April 29th, so you can hear about that. And they're 6 to 7:30, so they're just an hour and a half. So if you can attend those, that would be a great place to go to get more specific information about where students have gone on to. And but we for sure have all the lower division courses that students go into. Good question.
And I put the link for the open house in the chat as well.
For the arts, media, entertainment one.
For the, yes, the Zoom.
And the honors one is right after that. So if you want to hear about film, honors is at 7:30 on that same night. So. Other questions, either if you want to unmute or put in the chat.
How about EMT program?
EMT?
Yes.
Sorry. So we do have an EMT program. It's not a degree just because it's based on a course and then another course you sign up for that are your hours. But it's completely designed to prepare you for the EMT certification. So we do have that course. We offer it every semester. You sign up for like a lecture and kind of what we call like a lab component of it. And it certifies you. You get a proficiency, what's called a proficiency award, which is a Moorpark award, but it obviously prepares you for the certification for the industry of EMT. So we had it went away, and it's been back a couple semesters now. So that's a very employable, quick program, that you can go through and go through and get certified as an EMT through our coursework, and then go into the workforce with that. So yeah. Alejandra is quick. I'm impressed. I hope that it helped answer that question. There are a couple prerequisites.
Thank you.
Yeah, first aid certified, and a couple things before taking the course, but nothing. It's not like an application process, like a nursing program or anything like that. You just can sign up for the class.
And you can get that through this summer?
I don't believe that's a summer course. I would have to double check. I believe we only offer that because of the hours that are required for the class. I think it's only a fall or spring.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. And it's EMT, MO1 and MO1 lab. Like I said, it's 2 classes for a total of 8 units. One's a 6 unit, one's a 2 unit. And then we do have a refresher class. So if someone has been in EMT, they can come in, get recertified. We have that as a refresher option, but really it's the 2 classes for 8 units that you take. And then basically you take the exam and the written test, to be officially certified after you take the class.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Good questions. I hope this was helpful as you're rounding out your senior year, in all your different options. And again, please feel free to follow up with me. I'll stay on a couple more minutes. If anyone wants to ask questions, as everyone kind of leaves the room, I'll stay on. Or just feel free to email me and Alejandra, but lots of contact information. We're happy to help.